The Galactic Assembly Station floated in the silent void between Earth and the Vega systems, a shining symbol of unity among the stars. Its walls were lined with polished silver alloys and smooth, glowing panels. Halls hummed with quiet energy. Delegates from dozens of alien civilizations moved in careful rhythm, each step measured, each word chosen. Today, the Chamber of Diplomacy was filled with an unusual stillness. Earth's fate was about to be decided. Dr. Jackson Morrow stood before a tall mirror in his quarters, adjusting the sleek collar of his formal black uniform. The silver crest of Earth gleamed on his chest. His reflection stared back with calm eyes, but his heart beat just a bit too fast. He activated his neural implant with a thought. The polite mode clicked on, sending a cool sensation across his mind. Instantly, his breathing slowed. The corners of his mouth lifted into a slight, pleasant smile. Tension faded. His emotions were filtered now, polished, controlled. Polite mode had become standard for humans in interstellar affairs. It smoothed out irritation, softened sarcasm, quieted panic. It was the bridge that allowed them to sit at the same table as species who had evolved beyond emotional volatility. Jackson turned away from the mirror and picked up his tablet. Notes for today's presentation scrolled across the screen, a demonstration of Earth's commitment to peaceful conduct and cooperation. No weapons, no shouting, no chaos, just calm, polite diplomacy. A soft chime echoed through his room. The door slid open and his assistant, Mira, stepped in. She was younger, sharp-eyed, and already in polite mode. Her smile was identical to his. "It's time, Dr. Morrow," she said gently. Jackson nodded and followed her down the hallway. As they walked toward the central council chamber, he rehearsed his lines in his mind. His speech was simple. "Humanity is ready. We have evolved. We understand order, respect, and self-control." He had said these words 1,000 times. Today they had to sound true. The council chamber was a wide circular hall with high domed ceilings and transparent walls that revealed stars outside. Delegates sat in tiered seats, each group marked by a glowing sigil: the cold-blooded Varin, the floating Bruthari, the logical and ancient Korth Dominion. In the center stood a round platform. That was where Jackson would speak. He took his place and bowed slightly. A low, vibrating hum filled the room. It was the sign that the council had entered session. "Welcome, representatives of the Interstellar Council." Jackson began, his voice calm, even. "On behalf of Earth, I bring our greetings, our peace, and our promise." He could see the High Chancellor now, Vrax of the Korth Dominion, sitting tall and still, his eyes sharp and emotionless. Vrax had never hidden his doubts about humans. To him, polite mode was not a sign of evolution. It was a disguise, a trick. Jackson continued, walking slowly as he spoke. He gestured toward the small group of human delegates standing nearby. "With polite mode, we have created a way to rise above our instincts. No longer are we a species ruled by anger or pride. We seek connection, not conquest. Respect, not reaction." A soft ripple of light moved through the council tiers. Delegates were discussing quietly through their private channels. Jackson finished with a slow, practiced smile. "We are not perfect, but we are learning, and we offer ourselves as partners in this shared future." There was a pause. Then the High Chancellor rose. "Dr. Morrow," Vrax said, his voice deep and steady, "we thank you. But one must wonder, when the filter is removed, what remains of the human beneath?" The words hung in the air. Jackson held his smile. "The filter does not remove who we are. It helps us show the part of us that chooses peace." Vrax didn't respond. He simply sat again, his expression unreadable. The session closed for the day. The decision would come after a full review. Jackson left the chamber, his smile still in place though his jaw was tight. As he and Mira walked back through the glowing halls, she finally spoke. "You did well," she said. They listened. Jackson gave a short nod. "Let's hope that's enough." But deep inside, he wasn't sure. He could feel something coming, a shift, and though polite mode was still active, it could not erase the quiet anxiety in the back of his mind. Something was going to test them, soon. The morning of the demonstration arrived with the same perfect silence that always surrounded the Galactic Assembly Station. Outside the transparent walls of the council chamber, stars hung in stillness. Inside, a storm waited to begin. Dr. Jackson Morrow stood once again on the circular platform in the center of the chamber. Above him, alien faces observed in their private balconies, glowing softly under the overhead lights. The room was packed. Delegates from over 50 species had gathered for the main event, Earth's emotional control demonstration. Today they would see Polite mode in action, live, authentic, and uncut. Humans would speak, interact, and even respond to stress, all while under the steady influence of the neural filter that had come to define their diplomatic behavior. Jackson checked the neural sync readout on his wrist. Green. His Polite mode was active and stable. Mira stood beside him, nodding. The rest of the Earth delegation, 6 men and women dressed in dark formal attire, stood ready behind him, all implants online, all calm. "This is the moment we've prepared for," Mira whispered, her voice even. Jackson gave her a small nod. His heart beat faster, but the filter kept it quiet. The emotions were there, behind the surface. They always were. But Polite mode dulled their sharpness, shaped them into something smooth and presentable. That was the point. Above the chamber, the High Chancellor's voice filled the air. "Begin the demonstration." A soft vibration passed through the floor. The signal had been given. Jackson turned to face his team. They began a staged conversation. The scenario, a minor disagreement over interplanetary trade policy. A classic test. Delegate Sarah from Earth frowned gently and spoke with slow precision. "I disagree, Marcus, but I respect your reasoning. Let's find a compromise." Marcus nodded politely. "Agreed. Our shared goals are more important than our personal views." It was smooth, too smooth. That was the idea. The council watched silently, their expressions unreadable. Some leaned forward, others tapped notes, or whispered in their own languages. Then it happened. A soft crack echoed through the air, barely audible, like static. For a moment, Jackson thought it was a glitch in the speaker system, but then Mira winced. Her hand flew to her head. A sharp blink. Her smile vanished. Jackson turned toward her, confused. "Mira," she looked at him, stunned. "I think it's off." "What is?" "Polite mode." Before he could respond, Sarah's voice rose behind him. "Oh, come on, Marcus. That's not compromise. That's just giving in." Everyone froze. Sarah blinked rapidly, her face red with sudden heat. Marcus stepped back, visibly offended. "You've got to be kidding," he said sharply. "That's not how we rehearsed." "Why would I rehearse lying?" she snapped. Delegates above began to stir. Alien heads turned, translator devices flickering as tension built. Jackson felt it then, like a wave crashing against a barrier that was no longer there. The cool sensation in his mind was gone. His pulse sped up, his hands felt warm. He was feeling, raw, unfiltered feeling. The neural filter had failed. He tapped his wrist again. Nothing. The green light was off. His chest tightened. A council demonstration had become a live broadcast of unfiltered human behavior. "Mira, check the network," he said quickly. "I'm trying," she muttered. "Everyone's offline." System-wide drop. Sarah and Marcus were now arguing openly. Another delegate, Thomas, had stepped in to break it up, but his voice was sharp, his tone impatient. The entire Earth team was unraveling in real time. Above them, alien delegates watched silently. Some whispered, others looked shocked. A few simply stared, unblinking. The High Chancellor stood. His voice was quiet but firm. "What is the meaning of this?" Jackson stepped forward. He forced himself to speak calmly, but it was hard now. The emotions came too fast. "There appears to be a technical failure in our neural filter system," he said. "We're working to restore it." Vitris's dark eyes met his. "What we are witnessing," he said, "is your species, unmasked." A hush fell over the chamber. Jackson opened his mouth to respond, but Mira shook her head. No signal. The overrides blocked. He looked around. His team was still trying to hold back, but it was clear. The filters were down. Completely. He turned back to the council. "This was not intentional," he said. "We ask for time to correct the issue." Vedrick stepped forward slowly, his voice echoing across the room. "Or perhaps it is the truth we have always suspected. A species that cannot trust itself to speak without restraint. A danger hidden beneath a smile." Jackson's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to explain. But how could he, when his own body was betraying the very control he promised? The council session was suspended. Guards entered. The human delegation was escorted from the chamber in silence. Whispers followed them. So did stares. The damage was done. Back in the private quarters, Jackson collapsed into a chair. Mira paced, angry and confused. "Do you think it was a system error?" she asked. "Or something else?" Jackson stared at the floor. He didn't know yet. But one thing was clear. The council had seen what they were never meant to see. And now, Earth's future in the stars hung by a thread. The silence in the private quarters of Earth's delegation was thicker than ever before. The glow from the room's wall panels cast long shadows across the floor, broken only by the flickering of unstable neural diagnostics on the central table. The once steady green lights of polite mode were gone, replaced by blinking red and yellow warnings. Dr. Jackson Morrow sat at the head of the table, hands clasped tightly in front of him. Across from him sat Mira, brows furrowed, fingers tapping rapidly across the control console. The rest of the delegation stood or paced, all visibly on edge. They had gone from carefully filtered diplomats to real human beings, stressed, tired, confused. "Systems scan complete," Mira said at last, her voice tired. "It wasn't a glitch." Jackson looked up. "Then what was it?" She hesitated. "It looks like a targeted disruption. Someone accessed the polite mode control network and triggered a forced shutdown. It hit every implant in our team." "Sabotage," Jackson said quietly. Mira nodded. A heavy silence followed. The rest of the delegation began talking all at once, some whispering, others raising voices. Fear, anger, embarrassment, all flowing freely now. "This is exactly what they wanted to see," said Marcus. "We looked unstable, primitive. They'll vote us out," Sarah muttered. "That Korth Chancellor, he's been waiting for this." Jackson stood, his chair sliding back with a hard scrape. "Enough." The room quieted. He looked around at each of them. Yes, this was a disaster. But if we lose control now, we only prove them right. But Jackson, Mira said carefully, "We did lose control. That's the whole point. Without polite mode, we're unpredictable, emotional. That's how we look to them. Then we show them something else," he said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "We show them that even without filters, we can handle ourselves, that we're more than emotion, that we can face a crisis and respond with thought, not instinct." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You want us to walk back into that chamber raw?" "No," Jackson said. "Not yet. First we find out who did this. If it was sabotage, the council needs to know. If it was someone from our side," he paused, "then we need to fix that ourselves." He turned to Mira. "I want full logs pulled, access points, transmission times, everything." She nodded and got to work. Jackson walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. They were beautiful, silent, steady, and distant, so different from the mood in the room behind him. But something about their quiet steadiness gave him strength. He thought about the Chancellor's words, "This is your species, unmasked." Maybe it was true. Maybe that moment was humanity without its shield. But if so, it wasn't the full truth. Jackson believed there was more to being human than anger and confusion. There was courage, too. There was honesty. His thoughts were broken by a soft chime at the door. Mira glanced at the security monitor. "It's Representative Relen of the Brultha." "Alone," Jackson nodded. "Let her in." The door slid open with a whisper. Relen floated in gracefully, her jellyfish-like form glowing softly in the dim light. Her voice, translated into smooth tones, filled the room. "I come not as counsel," she said, "but as friend." Jackson bowed his head. "We appreciate that." "I watched the demonstration," she said. "It was intense, but not meaningless." He studied her. "What did you see?" "I saw beings reacting to pressure, fear, pride, frustration. But I also saw restraint. No one attacked, no one ran. You stayed, you tried to continue. We didn't mean for it to happen. I believe you, Relen said. But not everyone will. Some saw danger, others saw honesty. Jackson took a slow breath. Do you think we still have a chance? She floated closer. There is always a chance, but truth is a heavy thing. Some fear it, others honor it. Your next steps will decide how they remember what they saw. When she left, the room fell quiet again. Jackson turned to his team. We don't lie, we don't blame, we face this openly, and we do it together. Mira looked up from her console. I found something. She tapped a screen, and a data feed scrolled rapidly. Someone on our team accessed the polite mode override from a personal device, just before the demonstration. Jackson stepped closer. Who? She hesitated, then turned the screen toward him. His breath caught. The name displayed was Dr. Elias Trent, a senior cultural advisor, recently added to the Earth team. He's not here, Sarah said, scanning the room. He didn't even come back with us after the session. Jackson felt a cold weight settle in his chest. This wasn't an accident, he said. Someone wanted this to happen. He straightened his shoulders. The council would need answers, and he would bring them, with or without the filter. The council chamber felt colder than before. Gone were the calm welcomes and ceremonial words. Gone were the pleasant smiles and quiet diplomatic nods. Today the air was heavy with tension. All eyes were on Earth's delegation as they entered the circular chamber once again, this time without the steady guidance of polite mode. The implants remained offline. Dr. Jackson Morrow walked ahead, back straight, jaw tight. Behind him, Mira and the rest of the team followed, their expressions serious, guarded. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. High Chancellor Vrex stood at the central podium, his long fingers folded in front of him. The Korth Dominion's dark robes fell around him like a curtain of authority. His gaze swept across the chamber with sharp precision. This emergency ethics hearing is now in session, he said. His voice was clear and hard. The Interstellar Council will address the incident that occurred during Earth's demonstration, an incident that calls into question the stability and honesty of the human species. Jackson took his place at the center platform. The circular lights above bathed him in a cold glow. He felt exposed. No filter, no buffer, just himself. Vrex continued. Dr. Morrow, you may speak in your defense. Jackson stepped forward. He looked up, not at Vrex but at the delegates seated in the tiers above. He saw confusion in some eyes, concern in others. A few looked angry, a few curious. He took a breath. No neural dampening, just his own voice. There was a failure, he said clearly, but not a system error. It was a deliberate shutdown. He tapped his control pad. A projection appeared in the center of the room, data logs, access records, security reports. This evidence shows that Dr. Elias Trent, a member of our delegation, accessed the override protocols minutes before the demonstration. He initiated a total shutdown of all polite mode filters among Earth's team. Gasps and murmurs rippled across the chamber. Vrex's eyes narrowed. Where is this Dr. Trent now? He asked. Gone, Jackson said. He left his post and hasn't returned. We are searching for him. We believe he acted alone. And what was his motive? Jackson looked around the chamber again. We don't fully know, but we believe he wanted to force this moment to reveal the real human beneath the filter. Maybe he thought truth would bring trust. Or maybe he wanted to cause harm. Vrex stepped down from the podium, slowly circling the platform as he spoke. So we are to believe that a member of your own team, a carefully selected diplomat, sabotaged your demonstration, and not one of you knew. Jackson didn't flinch. That's correct. And as soon as we learned what happened, we came here to tell the truth. Vrex's voice turned sharp. And what is that truth, Dr. Morrow? That your people are volatile and unpredictable without technology to restrain them. That your peace is not peace at all but a mask. Jackson let a beat of silence pass before he answered. No, the truth is this. Yes, we are emotional. Yes, we feel things deeply. Anger, frustration, sadness, but also compassion, courage, hope. We created polite mode not to hide, but to protect others, to learn diplomacy, but we are more than the filter. He stepped forward, his voice rising slightly, not shouting but strong. You saw us at our worst, unprepared, surprised, exposed, but we didn't attack. We didn't flee. We stayed. We faced your judgment. That's what humans do. We stumble, but we stand back up. We argue, but we come back to the table. We are not perfect, but we are honest. He paused, letting the silence sink in. And I believe that's worth something. Vrex looked unconvinced. He turned toward the council. Is it wise, he asked them, to welcome a species that must install devices in their brains to speak politely? What happens when they remove those devices in war, in anger, in fear? Then another voice spoke, calm, smooth. I would like to respond. It was Representative Rylan of the Brulthery. She floated forward from her seat, glowing softly, tendrils flowing behind her. I witnessed the demonstration, she said, and what I saw was not savagery. It was discomfort, a loss of balance, but I also saw restraint. I saw choice. She turned toward the others. Many species here know what it is to struggle with emotion. We have developed our own disciplines, rituals, technologies. Earth's method is simply one of many. Others began to murmur in agreement. A representative from the Felling Consortium spoke next. If humans are to be judged for building tools to manage peace, then we must judge ourselves the same. Their honesty now speaks louder than their error. Vrex's face remained unreadable, but he was no longer in control of the room. Jackson stepped back and stood with his team. He was breathing heavier now, but not from nerves, from release. He had spoken his truth. What happened next was beyond him. The council fell into quiet discussion, delegates speaking over secure channels, lights flickering as thoughts passed invisibly from one end of the chamber to the other. After a long wait, a voice rose from the center dais. This council will reconvene in one cycle to deliver judgment. The lights dimmed. The hearing was over. Jackson turned to leave. As he walked with Mira down the quiet hall, she glanced at him. You were right, she said softly. About what? That it's better to show who we are, even when it hurts. Jackson nodded. They didn't know what the council would decide, but for the first time since this began, he didn't feel like he was hiding. The waiting began. The council chamber had gone dark, its glowing panels dimmed, its balconies emptied. The towering spires of the Galactic Assembly Station stood silent, high above the stars. Only whispers moved through the halls now, whispers about Earth, about the hearing, and about the truth that had finally been seen. Dr. Jackson Morrow sat alone in the quiet lounge outside the Earth delegation's quarters. The lights here were soft and golden, meant to calm nerves, but they did little to ease his thoughts. His hands rested on his knees. His eyes were fixed on the glass wall before him, watching the stars beyond. They were the same stars that humans had stared at for centuries, once with wonder, now with presence. But now Jackson wondered if the stars had looked back and judged. Behind him, the others sat in silence. Mira was reviewing messages on her pad. Sarah paced slowly, arms folded. Marcus leaned against the wall, eyes closed. No one dared speak too loudly. Any sound felt like it might break something fragile. Jackson finally spoke. They're not just thinking about the shutdown, they're thinking about what it revealed. Mira nodded. I've been reading the reports. Reactions are split. Some were disturbed, others intrigued. Jackson turned from the window. And what about Vrex? He's pushing for a full suspension of Earth's membership. Says the filter was a crutch we used to fool them. Jackson shook his head. He's wrong. We didn't build polite mode to fool anyone. We built it because we didn't trust ourselves. And maybe that's the real problem. There was a pause. Then Sarah spoke. I didn't like how I acted during the demonstration, she said. I lost control. I said things I didn't mean. You also didn't hit anyone, Marcus added, or scream, or storm out. You stayed. We all did, Mira said. We didn't fall apart. We were just human. Jackson stood and walked slowly toward the center of the room. And maybe that's what the council needs to understand. That peace doesn't mean perfection. It means effort. The door chimed. Everyone turned. Jackson answered, and the door slid open with a soft hiss. Another visitor. Not a Brulthari this time, but a tall, narrow-framed alien with glowing eyes and thin, folded arms. Representative Kale of the Korin Archive. "May I come in?" Kale asked. "Of course," Jackson said, stepping aside. Kale entered and gave a formal nod. "I do not speak for all, but I speak for my kind. We studied your demonstration. It was unsettling, but it was also informative." Jackson waited. Kale continued. "In our culture, emotional control is learned from birth. We do not use machines. We use tradition, meditation, isolation. When we first encountered humans, we believed you were reckless. But what I saw yesterday was something else." Kale's glowing eyes focused on Jackson. "You feared what would happen, but you did not run from it. That takes discipline, even without control. Perhaps that is worth more than the device itself." Mira stepped forward. "Are there others who feel the same?" Kale nodded. "More than you think. Vrex is loud, but not alone in his doubts, nor in his fears." He turned to leave. "The decision comes soon. I hope your truth will weigh heavier than your error." When he was gone, Jackson let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Throughout the day, more delegates arrived, one by one. Some spoke kindly, some simply asked questions. One from the Delari Circle wanted to understand human emotions. Another from the Thalvek Enclave asked why humans hadn't just removed emotion entirely. Jackson answered them all honestly. "Because emotion is part of us. We don't want to erase it. We want to learn to carry it better." That answer seemed to satisfy many. As the hours passed, the Earth team began to feel something they hadn't since the shutdown: hope. By evening, the Council sent a message. Final deliberation would begin within one cycle. Jackson returned to his quarters and stood once more before the wide window. The stars outside still burned steady and bright. Mira entered quietly. "You ready for tomorrow?" He nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be." She stood beside him. No filter, just you. Jackson looked at his reflection in the glass. He didn't look perfect. His eyes were tired. His hair was slightly out of place. But he looked real. "Maybe that's what we needed all along," he said softly. "To show them the version of us that keeps trying, not the one that hides." She smiled faintly. "Let's hope they agree." Outside, a nearby star flared gently, its light catching the edge of the station. Tomorrow the Council would decide. One way or another, the waiting would end. The Galactic Assembly Station awakened slowly, its great lights rising with the quiet hum of artificial dawn. But for Earth's delegation, sleep had not come easily. Dr. Jackson Morrow stood in silence at the edge of the balcony outside his quarters, staring down at the slowly rotating rings of the council chamber below. His hands were clasped behind his back. His heart was steady, not calm, but ready. He wasn't wearing polite mode. It had remained offline. On purpose. The council had made no request to repair the filters, and Jackson had chosen not to push for them. The events of the last few days had proved that the real test wasn't about systems or safeguards. It was about who humanity was without them. The message came through at mid-cycle. The council is ready to announce its judgment. No ceremony, no speeches, just those 9 words. Jackson turned, facing Mira and the rest of the team. "They've seen us as we are," he said. "Now they'll decide if that's enough." They left together, walking the long, curved halls toward the chamber. Delegates passed them without speaking. Some offered short nods. Others looked away. The mood was heavy. No hostility, just uncertainty. As the doors to the council chamber slid open, Jackson's eyes lifted toward the familiar tiers of alien representatives. The chamber was filled. High Chancellor Vrex stood in the center, beside the glowing council seal. His posture was tall, his expression unreadable. "Delegates of the Interstellar Council," he began, voice echoing through the vast dome, "we gather to conclude the review of Earth's conduct and its suitability for continued membership." The words fell like stone. Vrex turned, facing Jackson and the Earth team. "You were tested by failure, by emotion, and by truth. You were observed in an unfiltered state. There are those who believe what we saw was weakness, others that it was honesty. He stepped aside as the central platform began to glow. The council has reached a decision. Jackson felt Mira tense beside him. His own breath stayed slow. He would not look away. A second voice, synthesized and deep, filled the chamber, spoken on behalf of the collected votes. Earth will retain provisional membership in the Interstellar Council. The words echoed once, twice, then faded into silence. Jackson blinked, unsure if he had heard it correctly. Vrex remained still. The vote was close, but the majority agreed that emotion is not in itself a disqualifier. Your response to failure, your willingness to face consequences, was deemed worthy of continued observation and growth. Mira exhaled slowly beside him. The others exchanged quiet glances. There were no cheers, no applause, just relief. The council's decision was clear. Earth was still in, but only just. They would be watched. They would be tested again, but they would not be cast out. Vrex continued. However, your reliance on artificial emotional suppression has raised concern, effective immediately. Polite mode will be classified as non-essential. Its use is now optional in council presence. You may represent yourselves as you choose, but choose wisely. Jackson stepped forward. He didn't wait to be invited to speak. I understand, he said, voice calm. We accept your conditions, and we thank you for allowing us the chance to keep building trust, not with filters, but with our choices. He paused, then looked directly at Vrex. And for what it's worth, we never wanted to hide who we are. We just didn't know if the galaxy could handle it. That drew a soft ripple of murmurs from the upper tiers. As the council closed the session, delegates began to leave. Some moved quickly. Others lingered, casting glances back at Jackson as if trying to see him differently. Representative Ralen floated past and gave a gentle bow. Kal of the Quoran paused just long enough to nod once. It wasn't victory, but it was recognition. Back in the corridor, Mira fell in beside Jackson. We made it. He gave a slight smile. Barely, but on our terms, she said. No filters, no pretending. Jackson looked ahead, watching the long curve of the corridor stretch before them, lights pulsing slowly on the walls. He tapped his wrist. A soft tone sounded, but not from polite mode. That interface remained disabled. It was a message from Earth Command. Congratulations, the Council has informed us. We stand with you. Prepare for ongoing cooperation under new guidelines. Humanity is proud. Jackson turned off the message and let the silence return. As he walked, he reached for the small implant at the base of his neck. It remained in place, inactive. He left it there but made no move to turn it on. When he re-entered the chamber later that day, for a quiet planning meeting on shared communication strategies, he did so without the filter, without the smile that had once been programmed. He smiled anyway, but this time it was real.